Frank Zappa. I am so all about Frank Zappa. I have been since I first heard him in whatever, 69. You know, and the first music I remember hearing was a recording, other than my mother singing us to bed, asleep, was Gene Autry doing I'm back in the saddle again, you know, but then Elvis. It was 1950. That was in the early 50s, and then around 56 or whatever, Elvis came along, and I was just totally into Elvis. I mean, completely for like I was at a point where I still have the collection. I've got about 35 albums and another 35, 45s, and all collected in the 50s for $3 an album or what have you. And at that time, I told myself I'm not going to buy anybody else's records until I have all of what Elvis has recorded. Elvis had recorded. And I did a pretty good job of it. And then I kind of, you know, I don't know, the early 60s, and what happened really is this whole new era. But Jagger really saved me from this Elvis kick. And then, of course, there's Phil Oakes and P.F. Sloan and so forth. And then, in the 60s, Zappa just took me away. I mean, nobody plays like that. And so, when I became the Spoonman, before I became Spoonman, I went and saw him once, and that's the first time I saw him live, and it was in Seattle, and it was just like that. It was just great. They went from drum, keyboard, vocals, all doing a percussion type of a presentation, and then they'd switch instruments, and then they'd switch instruments again, and all the time, of course, Zappa's conducting. It was just never seen anything like it. So in '75, and I'd already started being the Spoonman. I've been the Spoonman literally as making my living on it since '74, and that's another story. But sometime in '75, rather, I had a dream that I was performing with Dr. Hook and the Medicine Show and Frank Zappa. This is the same dream. Then in early '76, whatever, 5 or 6 months later, living in Portland, Dr. Hook and the Medicine Show came to gig at Euphoria, bar that was down on the river. And so I went there in the afternoon knowing what sound checks were all about. And I went down there, and sure enough, I was there when they came in. And I played for them in the afternoon, the sound check at the time. And they enjoyed what I did, and they said, come back tonight. There goes the ferry. Or here comes the ferry. So they asked me to return and do a set and do a break, and then so I did. I came back, and that's what I'd asked them if I could do. And so I did. I came back that night, and I was already pretty well known in Portland. So I played a break, and I did, you know, made some change, and then they asked me to join them on the last song, which was "Will the Circle Be Unbroken?" I don't know why they did that. It wasn't one of theirs or Shel Silverstein's, but anyway. So with that, I knew. I can't help it. You know, everybody's got their mystique going on. I just knew that I was going to get to play for Zappa. And in 1977, I fell in love with a woman. We were together 10 years. A friend of hers had Zappa's phone number. And so when I was in Los Angeles, I called him. And he answered. Excuse me. And so I asked him if I could play spoons for him. He said, no, I'm kind of busy right now. And so I made some foolish remark like, well, maybe someday I'll zap in front of you. That's what I said. And sure enough, 1981, I was living up here in the Seattle area, and he was coming to perform in Portland. And I told a friend I wanted in, and he had, you know, a connection with the Paramount, which is now something other name now, in Portland. So he got me 4 tickets, both tickets to the show and comps for the meet and greet after the show in the lobby. And they even offered to pick me up at the airport. You know, they thought I might be flying in, but it was really nice of them. Anyway, so I wound up there, brought some friends, watched the show, and afterwards went to the meet and greet, and eventually worked ourselves to the table. He was signing stuff, and then we waited around till there wasn't much doing. And then I asked him if I could play for him. So I pulled out my spoons, I played for him, and when I finished, he said, give me your address. I can get you on TV. And I thought that was a pretty queer thing for Zappa. I didn't expect him to say something about television. And so Joan, my companion, she wrote out on a card our address up here in Seattle, and somebody else asked me to play again, so I did. And then when I got through, I handed him the card, and he looked at the card, and he said, Seattle, are you going to be there tomorrow? And this is one of the silliest damn things I ever did. I said, no. And it's like, it's a, whatever, a 3-hour drive. I said, no, but I knew his schedule. He was going to Seattle, Vancouver, and Eugene. And so I said, no, but I'll be in Eugene. Whatever the day, and the day was after my birthday that year, and so yeah, I showed up. I had the passes. They gave me passes there that day, and I showed up, and he had me close the show for me in Eugene at Mac Court. And literally, the place, I mean, I don't know, whatever. The place really dug that. They kind of, you know, they knew me from the country fair, so there was a big reception for me when they brought me out. And then the band, later on, he left, and the band said I ought to show up in New York because, you know, I'd done. They gave me some passes, and I did. And I got to close the Halloween show the night before Halloween. He had 4 days running for him at the Palladium in Union Square area. In '91, he was considering running for president. He was feeling it all out. And I wrote to him in early '92, and I says, man, anything. I put on a suit, I cut my hair, anything. And didn't get a response. Every now and then I'd write. I didn't get a response ever. And then I had a gig down in Palm Springs, and I went down there, and I went all the way to Tucson. This was in like April '92. And on the way back, I checked my messages. I had a message service here in Seattle, and Gail Zappa was there and said that Frank would like to have me come in the studio and record. So I did when I was in the Los Angeles area. I spent 4 hours there, 2.5 hours recording, mostly sampling, and then an hour and a half visiting. And, you know, it was spending time with the maestro. And it was, yeah, the highlight. I don't know what else to say. There is no there's no penultimate, I suppose, but in a way that was the highlight of my career. Certainly handing me a card to the club. Here, you're a musician. So that was encouraging more than anything, and it was great being with Frank Zappa.